Hello, what's up guys, and today we're going to be talking about 5 different ways you can improve your videos to make them more professional and cinematic. The first way to improve your videos is by shooting in manual. I can't stress this enough how important this is if you want to grow as a photographer or videographer. You can't just let the camera do all the work. You have to expose the scene correctly, and you've got to know how to do that. So the quicker you learn how to shoot manual, the better it is. You can control the aperture, so you can isolate a subject from the background and the foreground. You can set the shutter speed you need depending on what frames per second you're shooting in. Everything that you do in manual will make your life so much easier in post. Also, what comes into shooting manual is shooting manual focus. Not a lot of people touch this because of how good the cameras are at autofocusing right now. The tracking and everything's amazing. I'm using it right now because I've got iAuto track. But for example, if there's 2 people in a scene talking and they're not next to each other, one's in the background and one's in the foreground, when one of them stops talking and the other one starts, you can quickly change the focus manually so it perfectly makes them in the background in focus, and then you can switch it back to the person in the foreground instead of relying on autofocus. And that's the main point that I'm trying to say when you're using manual. It's reliable. You're not trusting on the camera, it's all what you're doing, and what you're doing is the most important, especially if it becomes to professional videos. The second way to improve your videos is by shooting in log mode. Different cameras have different names for log. Canon, it's C-log, and Fuji, it's F-log. Log is basically raw for video. So it has a very flat image, so it's not very pleasing to the eye when you first see it out of camera, and that's because it's getting all the details in the highlights and the shadows for when you color grade in like Premiere Pro, for example. With details in the highlights and the shadows, plus shooting in manual and perfectly exposing the scene will make the image and the video look so much better and more professional when you color grade it in post. The third way to improve your videos is by learning when to use the right frames per second. You've got 24 frames per second, which is what I'm using now. As you can see, there's motion blur on my hands. That makes it a more cinematic shot because it's more realistic. In real life, if someone's going like that in front of your eyes, you're going to see some motion blur. So this is why top Hollywood blockbuster films use 24 frames per second, because they want you to feel immersed into the film, to feel like you're there. If you shoot in 60 frames per second, it's a lot more smoother, and that's why they don't really shoot in 60 frames per second unless they want slow-mo, and a lot of films use slow-mo because slow motion is cinematic. The way to get slow motion from 60 frames per second is by going in, for example, Premiere Pro, and then clicking on the clip and go on speed duration, and then slowing it down to a 24 frames per second timeline, and that's how you get the slow motion. It's the same for 120 frames per second and 240 frames per second. So when you're doing shots, you need to know if this is going to be in slow motion or not, or if you want it to look more cinematic with the motion blur. The fourth way, and arguably the most important way, is by having a good microphone. If you have bad audio, it will probably leave a bad taste in the viewer's mouth than a bad picture. You can have all the 4K pictures you want and the great lighting, but if you use the camera's audio system, it's going to sound so unprofessional, and that's going to make people click off your video more times than the picture, because people want to hear nice quality audio. The mic I'm using now is the Rode shotgun mic. I just mount it on my camera, and it's brilliant for vlogging as well. You can also edit audio in post in Premiere Pro to make it sound even better. For example, if I was to shout really loud now, you can lower it down in post, or if I was really quiet, you can up the volume, and you can also add effects onto it. So for example, from my last video when I went to Pittsford Reservoir, you can hear all the water and the background noise, and it didn't sound very good. But what I've done, I clicked on this effect called denoiser, put it on all my audio clips, and you literally just heard my voice, and it completely killed out the background noise, and that makes it sound so much more professional than if you heard all that background noise. The fifth way to improve your videos is by moving the camera. So instead of just having it on a tripod and you're looking at a subject, if you actually start moving the camera slowly to the right while panning while they're still in focus, that's going to make for a more pleasing and cinematic image, if you move the camera and it's really shaky, it's not going to look that good. And if you have an image stabilized lens, it's going to make that image way more professional. And if you want to up it even more, then I suggest investing in a gimbal. The one I have is the DJI Ronin SC2. Now this thing is amazing. It makes the footage you shoot so smooth and so pleasing to the eye, and it makes it look 100% way more professional and way more cinematic when you have silky smooth images. Image stabilized lenses and gimbals are not in your budget, then you can still get smooth shots using handheld. You just got to do a lot of practice with it. The more you practice with it, the better you'll become at it. So by getting smooth cinematic footage is not out of bounds for anyone. As long as you practice, you can get it. Don't make gear get in the way. Right then guys, that was it. That was 5 ways to improve your videos every time you go out and shoot. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, hit that like button and subscribe to see more. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.